Hey there viewers, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a 2000 Nissan, however you want to say it, that's got a knock sensor code. So I thought, well, I'm waiting for my paint project to dry, that we should probably take a look at this. Most knock sensors are a typical, one wire type of circuit, use the engine block as a ground, and so it should be a pretty quick and straightforward diagnosis, and show you how it's done. So we're going to use the Snap-on Modus. She's an oldie. You won't really see her in that many more videos because we're buying OTC Evolve here for the high school, which I think I'm going to like a lot more. So probably see that in the upcoming videos. So never mind our black spots on the screen. I got this monitor for absolutely nothing from the tech department because it was broken. So bear with me a little bit on that. There we are. And we're at 2000. Xterra, the ED engine in it. We're going to go engine and our auto with AT. So a Snap-on, you got to put these keys, at least with this one you do. It's going to be nice. Our new tool should auto ID and all of that other stuff. So here's K14. We'll plug it in. If I can find it. Somewhere under the dash here. Watch, these keys all fall out again. So our new tool will be wireless, which is going to help us out immensely when we're doing videos and all that other stuff. So I turn the key on. All right. Codes and data. Let's go codes. I have not started the engine, so I have two codes. Don't worry about this one. And I did not rig this vehicle. This is actually a code that's been, I've had this vehicle for about 5 years now. So let's see if we can go into data, which I'm sorry, Snap-on kind of falls a little bit on the data stream on this particular vehicle. So just see if it gives us knock sensor voltage or anything while we're here. It's pretty slow on this truck too. Got O2s, and I have O2s. Okay, that's lovely. So no knock sensor. So maybe it's an ignition. Probably would be for controlling ignition timing. Okay, timing is at 70 degrees, IAC is at 95, engine load looks like battery's low, and no knock sensor PID. Okay, alright. I would assume it should give it to us. Counts or something maybe. Evap vent, pressure, tank temp 66. Yeah. Dang. See what's in here. Starter bat, cooling fan, coolant, engine's cold. Okay. Wow. Maybe you can hear the disappointment in my voice here. Might have to just jump straight into pulling a wire diagram from all data and ohming the sensor out or something. Short term, long term, injector pulse. Wow. Okay. Hop into all data here, and let's actually clear this. It's only got one code. See if this comes back. So we got P1000 or P000 in this case. I'm gonna cycle the ignition. Okay, so our code didn't come back. I'm gonna start the engine. Well, that was easy to start. Okay. So usually this code comes back. I'm gonna let the engine warm up for a few minutes, and we'll see if this code comes back. All right, so like I said earlier, we've had this vehicle for about 5 years here in the shop. Got it in complete toilet, non-running condition. Wow, that windshield's a little dirty. And got it running, all that good stuff. And 5 years of folks pawing around on it, taking things apart that shouldn't necessarily be taken apart 500 times. And God couldn't tell you how many times oil's been changed on this thing. Hundreds. Yeah. How many times the tire's been rotated, brakes been took apart. Oh, brakes work good. Perfect. All that good stuff. So supposedly it had sugar in the gas tank when I got it, and I never did drain out the old crappy gas. Ran some injector cleaner through it good. Still has the same battery in it. It's not probably the easiest car we have to work on, but you know how it goes. Got a little bit of get up and go. It is one of my only cars that has a trailer hitch on it, receiver. So when you want to move a trailer around the lot, this thing is kind of nice to have. So you won't get this thing to run a drive cycle. Usually I let them run for half hour or so outside, just because if you don't, the gas gets bad in them, and time to get some fresh in. But hopefully it's warmed up to the point where you put a load on the engine, it can test out that knock sensor. I didn't bring the scan tool with me because she's so old, you gotta have her plugged in 24/7, otherwise it just shuts off on you. So I don't have a battery that works in. It's got a battery, but not a battery that works. Let's see if we can get away with something here. Oh yeah. She turns tight. Just take this middle bay. Okay, so one thing I'm noticing here after getting back from our little toot around the parking lot, she stinks. Stinks bad. I got a converter, so almost 220,000 on the clock, 219 and some change. I ain't putting converters on it, so sorry, I'm losing my mind here. We're going into codes, seeing what we find, and there it is, that 0325. So it's back, and then that code must perpetually stay in here. So let's take a look at all data and see what we need to do to fix this. Alright, so I put you guys together this little packet. Thought of a great idea too. If you work for all data, maybe we could click a button and get all the relevant information. So, it tells me about the knock sensor, senses engine knocking using a piezoelectric element, so probably kind of like your barbecue grill. Excuse me, people. Knocking vibration from the engine is sensed as vibrational pressure. Fair enough. The MIL will not light for knock sensor malfunction. So it shows me my knock sensor is more than likely under the intake manifold. I've looked for this sensor on this before and never really could find it, so all data doesn't seem to tell me where it's at. So if I bring you guys in, I'm just kind of thumbing through the paperwork for it. It looks like we can take a ohm reading. I'm not sure what this guy does, but she revs up every once in a while, and it's probably relearning everything, so I just let this run. But it looks like you need to access the knock sensor to take this reading, so I think what I'm going to do while I was going through this is it's also, sorry about that, it's also giving me some voltage with the engine idling. It's supposed to have 2.5 volts, so that's great. I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to check that at the PCM, so that probably means we're unplugging that. It's going to forget everything. So there's a couple things I'm thinking about here. I believe this is the ECM. We'll find out. But since I can't check the integrity of the wiring, I might try to get a lab scope on that and maybe hit the manifold with a hammer or something and see if I get anything back, since I can't use my scan tool either. Okay, yeah, it's definitely the ECM. Something I'm noticing on this ECM is there's an awful lot of dirt in this connector here. These little lock tabs you gotta pry up on. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see. Looking for a white wire. Grab my service info. I think, looking at my diagram here, I don't know if you guys can see that, but this white wire, this isn't actually labeled anywhere. So maybe it is under the mess in the back, but according to my diagram, that is a white wire and it is pin 64. So I think what we're going to do, oops, sorry, is we're going to plug this ECM in, back probe it, put the lab scope back on it. So unplug the ECM to, it's kind of hard working around you guys here, to get the cover off. There we go. Move that little rogue wire out of the way so that I could get to the terminals in the back. This is definitely the ECM. Just looking at the number of wires, so they'll usually plug themselves back in without you having to force the connector or anything like that. So kind of hard working around you guys. My apologies. I know you probably can't see anything. A lot of wires. I might trim that tape back a bit. Alright, I just solved that by getting a different back probe. Up here on the steering column for a ground for my scope. So I'm back probed into the white wire. I know you can't see that, but to be quite frank, I can barely see it as well. I'm going to go grab a lab scope. Okay, so here's a quick view of what I did. I have my scope probe, and its ground is just connected to body ground because the ground for this sensor is the engine. So that checks that ground. I am back probed. Enhance. Enhance. Focus. Focus. I am back probed into that white wire. and let's take a look at the lab scope. Alright, so here we are at the lab scope. Find our key. Sorry about the shaky handheld camera here. Okay, so if I look at my screen, I got 1 volt per division. And we're putting out about 3.2 volts. Let me check my service information. Okay, so here's what we just did. Here's the wire diagram for the circuit. Here's the ECM where we just were. We've back probed into pin 64. We've hooked everything back up exactly the way that it was. This white wire is shielded. That's what they're showing here. It's not shielded, or the shield is not grounded at the ECM, so there isn't another place to tie into that there. This shield will not throw a code. So we can ohm that out. We can check it with a test light and make sure that's good for what it's worth. It looks like this white wire goes straight up to the knock sensor and all that other good stuff. It looks like there's a connector here. I'd have to look and see. I assume that's a connector. Is a little different than kind of what I'm used to. It's the same look that's here, so that's probably a connector. Here's my resistance readings. Somewhere in this packet, approximately 2.5 volts DC is what it shows right up here from the ECM. So I'm gonna maybe just try this with a digital multimeter and see if we can't maybe get a little bit close to that. It does say the engine's gotta be running, so that might account for why I'm just slightly over that 2.5. But so far our ECM is looking good, which is gonna save us a ton of money, whether we were right or wrong on that call. So that's good. The expensive part, right now, I've got this deduced down to it's either going to be a wiring issue or it's a connector issue, which is a wiring issue, or the knock sensor itself is bad. So unfortunately, I would love to check my wires at the knock sensor, but it is buried underneath the intake manifold, and we ain't going to be able to get to that without taking a bunch of stuff apart. So let's check that with the engine running. Okay, I have no trigger set up. The scope is rolling. Still at about 3.28 volts. So I get about 4.6 on my multimeter. We've just connected that to our back probe and to our ground. So that's a little off of spec. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to attach this guy back to our lab scope and then give her the old hammer on the manifold treatment. And I'm assuming this 4.6 is a bias voltage. Okay folks, so what's going to happen is I am going to knock on preferably, yes, the bolt. Probably, I think that knock sensor is probably in the middle of the block. I'm going to knock on the bolt head with this steel punch and a hammer, and you guys are going to watch the oscilloscope inside the truck here, and I'm just going to look for any feedback whatsoever on the knock sensor. So if I get some, that probably means that my circuit's good at this point. Otherwise, I'm pretty much down to 2 options without spending a bunch of money. I can cut into the main ECM harness up here, and I can check and see if I got good power. That bias voltage, which only comes on when you turn the key on. So I'm assuming the PCM is putting that out. I can check for that up here, and well, my other choice is to turn the manifold off top of this engine, which at this age it's not really worth doing. So let's check out the lab scope. Okay, you can see where I've started the engine, and we got some time on the screen. So what we know at this point is, one, the knock sensor is, at least its wiring, is not shorted, which, okay, all right. 2, we know we have absolutely 0 feedback from the knock sensor, even when we're simulating a knock condition by tapping on the manifold with a hammer. So some of these got 2 knock sensors. I think this only has 1. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to locate the harness that knock sensor's wire runs into. I'm going to get as close to the knock sensor physically as possible, and then I'm just going to use a pomona. We're going to poke into the wire and see what we get. If we got voltage up here, we can pretty much reasonably assume that it's going to be a bad part. We want to call the customer and ask them, hey, you know, you got a couple options here. I did a little looking, and apparently there's a relocation kit for this knock sensor that kind of does what I'm doing. They dig into the harness and they put the knock sensor on top of the engine. Apparently it's kind of a common failure item. I would ask the customer, hey, do you want to do this the right way, or do you basically want your check engine light to shut off and all of that other good stuff? You know, this thing's got 230,000 miles on it, just about. It's probably not worth tearing the whole top of the engine apart and all that plastic connectors, and you might create more problems, you know, by taking it apart at this age. So okay, just because it takes about 10 seconds, we are ohming out the knock sensor. And I don't know if you can see that or not on the camera, but we are infinite on our resistance, which we pretty much confirmed with the lab scope. So I'll bet our voltage is a little bit high out of our ECM because there's nothing loading that circuit down. That would probably account for the extra volts. So the 2.5 approximate volts is probably with the knock sensor working. So let's continue on our original path where we're going to look up and all that. I'm going to see if I can find that connector somewhere in the middle, and that'll at least let me check the wiring from the ECM through the firewall up to the top of the engine, and kind of lets me, it looks like I can break the circuit in half. So that should be real easy with not much time. Okay, so here's what I found. Really nothing in all data, but if I look over here, there is this little wire right next to the 2 fuel lines coming off the last, what would that be? Number 6 injector, probably. It looks like a shielded black wire, and it runs all the way up and comes into these 2 plugs here. This guy tees off, goes down to the distributor. I assume that's our fuel injectors and all that other, because everything on top of this truck is just incredibly brittle. So, yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start peeling back a little bit of this sheath here and see if I can't maybe find that wire. It looks in the diagram that they actually break the shield out and run it through the harness, or through the plug here, not as a shield, but just as like a black wire. Oh man, that don't feel real good. Lock tab on that. You cannot push the button. This one you can. That's nice. So what the devil is wrong with this one? Oh, I just got to push a little harder. Okay. Everything's good. Everything's good. 8. Well, they're both 8-pin. So, alright, I guess we pick one. Let's maybe see if we can't. Oh, that's nice. That just came unplugged. Black and white. That's nice. How about this injector? Black and white. And here with a couple of blacks, a couple of whites. No, maybe. It'd be nice if I find one with an orange on it. For the time being. Plug all this stuff back in. Somehow. God, everything's broke. Somebody's been in here, or it just gets that crispy. I don't know. There's not even a lock on these fuel injectors, so again, I got this vehicle because it didn't run, so I'm sure it had been to several shops beforehand. And the prognosis on it probably wasn't good. See if we can just kind of score this tape here. Oh man, this is crispy. Crispy. Wow. Oh man, you just squeeze it, it comes apart. Oh, can you guys even see? Cool. I'm wearing gloves, so I hopefully don't cut my fingers off. Wow, this just falls apart. Okay. Try not to cut into any of our wires. Looks like a solid wad of 20-year-old tape here. Okay. Both go in there, that's nice. Wow. Stuff gets pretty nasty. But I guess the bright side is this will be all taped up real nice when we're done with it, right? Okay, shielded wire. Well, that looks like a shield. But it does not take the turn we expected it to take. Oh, but it does. There's two of them. Okay. I'll bring you in where you guys can see this a little better. So hopefully you can see this a little bit better. I've cut away some more of the tape. So this guy looks like he goes up toward the distributor. And then both of these share wires. So I split them kind of here down in the middle. You can see where my fuel injector goes. And I don't know if you guys can still see that. But hopefully this video turns out what I got. And then I tried cutting this tape. This ends up in the old sticky death trap tar. So I'm assuming that's got foil or something on it. But I get these two wires. This white, almost a tan, and this gray that are actually coming out right here. So I've got a couple options at this point. I'm gonna try to back probe. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to grab a Pomona and we'll plug all this stuff back in. We'll plug the ECM back in and see if we got our voltage up here. Because after that, it goes through this harness and disappears underneath the intake manifold. Whether it's a knock sensor or not, I'd have to pull the manifold to access that wiring. So I've got my meter hooked up here. Hopefully my big melon ain't blocking your view. Got my meter hooked up to, on the negative side, to battery ground, and then my positive, we're just going to go into this back probe here. So I showed you back probes in another video. We're going to do, hopefully you guys can see that. Got the key on, so I should be seeing, well, maybe if I wasn't on ohms. Okay, so that's a good back probe. And there's my 2.8-ish thereabouts volts. So hopefully you can kind of see that. I'll put this in the min max. So they're saying 2.6, I'm getting 3 volts up here. Let me just ground real quick here to the engine block, since that is indeed where this sensor is getting its ground from. Try to find something clean. Oh boy. Maybe this bracket here. redo the min-max again. So 2.9, that's pretty close to 3 volts, which is what we're getting here. So what this is telling me at this point, my connector is good here. My knock sensor isn't shorted. I have about another probably 1.5 feet of wire and a knock sensor that could be the problem here. So I think at this point we're going to go ahead and make the call on the knock sensor. I have to pull the manifold to access any of this wiring anyway, even if it was the wiring, and by then, just looking at how failure prone these parts are, this knock sensor is, you would put a knock sensor in it anyway. So I think our next step, if this is a customer's car, we call the customer, ask them what they want us to do. Do they want us to relocate a knock sensor, or do they want us to fix it the right way? And they're going to be spending, I never looked up the time, I give them a quote on what it takes to pull the manifold. Anyway, I figured I'd talk to you face to face here. I give them a quote what it costs to pull the manifold. I give them a quote what the relocation kit was going to cost. Yeah, we're at 3.1 volts now. So anyway, see what way they want to fix it. Something this many miles, they may just want the check engine light off. They want it to pass smog, pass emissions inspection. That's ultimately their choice. So I think what I'm going to do, since this is our car, I'm going to make the call. I'm going to buy a relocation kit. I think you get the parts off of Maxima. The knock sensor is actually cheaper. Why? I don't know. And you change out a bolt on the top of the manifold, it looks like. So maybe that'll help you guys when you come into this problem. So hopefully the troubleshooting process at this point made sense. We always want to check that wiring. We want to make sure our ECM has good connection. Before I take anything else apart, I am going to make sure the vehicle runs correctly. There's no point in seeing if the code comes back. We already know what criteria it takes to make that code trip, which is 2 circles around our parking lot. So we'll be able to super easily verify our concern and all of that good stuff. So I'll get the parts ordered, and then join me for the installation of the knock sensor relocation kits on your 2000 Nissan Xterra V6. Because I know you guys would ask, what's my voltage in here? So the key is off. We got plenty of time on the screen. Turn our key on. This is with the meter installed, and I'm looking at about 1.47 volts with both of these instruments installed. So let's go into our measurements and maybe get peak to peak. Okay, get rid of this. So our peak to peak is about 2.72 volts, which is awfully close to their 2.6 volts given to us on the screen. So let's just let's get some time off the screen here, figure out which way we want to go. And that is holding fairly steady. This is at the ECM. All right, so wow, that's annoying. One last thing here for grins. I'm gonna set this, bring this bad boy down. All right, so the ignition's on. I've got, what do I have? 200 millivolts per division. I'm gonna go and just kind of do this with the meter lead, and that's going to take a little bit of a load on and off this circuit, just confirming that we're in the right wires. We're looking at, valid information and things like that, because this is really easy to do. Okay, meter is on. And doing it again. And doing it again. And doing